everyone. Welcome to the Catching Up with COPE podcast. COPE is the Coalition of Parents in Esports, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides programs and scholarships to empower youth, parents, and educators to utilize gaming to build confidence, curiosity, community, and careers. I'm your host, Friday, and today I am here with Chris. Chris, thank you so much for being here today. I kind of want to start off, just if you can give a little introduction about yourself and what you do in the space right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an educator here for about 17 years in New Jersey. I recently left the classroom about 6 months ago to run the esports league I started during the pandemic full time. So during the pandemic, some teachers and I started Garden State Esports, which was a way to help kids stay connected and engaged, through the pandemic. We didn't know how long it was going to last, and we're hearing the benefits from teachers and students about what we were doing. So we turned it into a 501c3 and are basically the governing body for scholastic esports here in New Jersey. We currently have a little bit more than half of the schools in New Jersey in our league, which is about 12,000 kids. And then last year I started a college league as well, one of the only face-to-face college leagues in the country. And so we have 19 colleges that play with us as well. So you can, as a student, participate with GSE from fourth grade through post-grad school. The other thing I do through my work is I am the product evangelist for Gameplan, which is a learning management system that offers game-based learning, video game design courses, and other fun and engaging courses for schools to teach with during the day.
That's awesome. It's so amazing, and I want to dive into all of this. I kind of want to start off just like with where this all started for you, because you said that you had been a teacher, and sort of, I think a lot of times people now can go specifically into esports, but I'm kind of wondering what your path was like, maybe if it was just combining a love of gaming with teaching, or like how you sort of found those crossroads.
Yeah, I've played traditional sports my whole life and coached, football and wrestling and track here in New Jersey. But growing up, I also enjoyed playing games. Like most people my age, I got my start with StarCraft. And then from StarCraft, I got into Counter-Strike and then Overwatch. And I always, I just enjoy being competitive. I like competitive sports. I like competitive games. But being a teacher, right, it's all about the connection that you make with students, right? And so for me, gaming was always a topic of discussion that I could engage my kids with. They would say what they were playing, I would say what I was playing. Even them letting them bring in consoles and stuff and play, in my classroom during lunch. It was just always this thing that kind of was glue with my relationships with my students. And so it was cool. In Jersey in about 2010, Major League Gaming came to Atlantic City, and I went down with some buddies to go watch the StarCraft 2 tournament. And when I got there, I was blown away because, I had seen some esports a little bit. I remember I used to go to like the Team Liquid website, and on the sidebar they would have the streamers, and I would watch like the Koreans and Boxer and those guys play, and I just thought it was like this little thing that people played online, and it was really cool. But when I got to Atlantic City and I saw MLG blew it up, man, they had announcers, they had like entrance music, like pro wrestlers and stuff like that. I just remember thinking it was so cool and how much kids would love to be a part of something like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so since 2011, I had tried to start esports programs where I was working, and it was nose for something like 7 or 8 years until about 2018, 2019, when I started my first esports team finally. Then the pandemic hit, 6 months later. And it was cool because I just gave my kids the computers to take home. I called up some buddies, who had video game clubs at their school, and I said, hey, do you guys want to compete? And we started to play Rocket League every Tuesday, and that became like a thing that these kids looked forward to. And then from there, it just expanded. And, now we have, like I said, some 300, almost 400 schools and 12,000 kids and 19 colleges all getting to participate with esports.
That's awesome. It's amazing. And as someone who really was open sort of up to the world of, what esports and gaming can do from an event, also like similarly to you, it was like that, that excitement and that world that I saw for the first time during that event was like so eye-opening to me. And that kind of makes me want to ask you, I think schools at various levels, whether it's, middle school, whether it's high school, whether it's like colleges, have a hard time, used to have a hard time accepting esports because there was an uncertainty and almost like they were afraid that video games would affect their kids negatively about like screen time or like, too
Yeah,
much,
absolutely.
that sort of thing. And a lot I think a lot of schools now are a bit more accepting of, video games itself and, students playing video games, but I still think that there isn't as much investment in it because I don't think that they understand what it can do for their school.
Right.
Um are what are ways you feel that like you have worked to combat these issues, whether it's through GSE or with Gameplan? Like how do you
Yeah.
feel that you've tackled that sort of transition, or if you've been
Yeah.
part of that conversation?
Absolutely. I mean, and that was a major hurdle that we had to overcome, and that's actually what got me involved working with Game Plan. Those 7 years that I was told no. First, it was because there wasn't good enough technology, there wasn't good enough internet. Then it was, well, violent kids make violent games make violent kids, and do we really want these kids sitting around? They're in their basements playing alone, and they're antisocial, and so there were all like these issues that we had to overcome. And every time I would talk to a board of ed, or every time I would talk to a principal or a super, and they would, trot out the same old talking points about why this was bad, is I would go home and I would write, what they had said, and then I would do the research and I would think about how would I integrate this into a lesson, right? How would I integrate the importance of going outside and balancing, gaming and, exercise and stuff like that. And so that actually became the foundational curriculum that we use in Garden State Esports, right? We call it
Mm,
EPIC, the Esports Personal and Performance Improvement Curriculum. And the idea was getting good at anything. If you want to be a top tier athlete, if you want to be a top tier student, there's the habits of highly successful people don't often change depending on what you're doing. And then because we had this curriculum and we wanted to share it wider than New Jersey, that's how I ran into meeting the folks at Game Plan, and we put our curriculum on with the curriculum that they had, and now, we're being able to push it out internationally. And so realistically, our esports program in New Jersey is built around making parents and administrators and other stakeholders who don't understand, making them feel comfortable with this. And to your point too, is part of where we have had, or we're having success with the college leagues, is a lot of, there's 217 something esports college programs, right? And a lot of these programs have spent a lot of money on spaces, and they have this as part of their 5-year recruitment, vision for the school, but they don't understand exactly how to use it.
mhm.
And so within New Jersey, one of the pitches I gave to the colleges was, number one, you guys have these $1 million spaces you're not using. And if you are using them, you're playing some school that nobody's ever heard of across the country, and half of your room is filled because you're playing somebody virtually, but you have a stage built for two. I
Yeah.
said, Jersey is close enough. I said, can't we all just play each other? And then when you guys are playing each other at the college level, I'm going to send the high schools to watch and to get a college tour and to go and see and learn and experience what college life is like. Because, I'm a big data nerd. 82% of our kids say that a college's gaming and esports scene is part of their college decision-making process. So, right, you're over at Emerson. Emerson's got a fantastic program,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you did your homework and you looked at these colleges. Like, everybody has a
Mhm.
video game design major, everybody has a business major. How am I spending my time outside of class is almost as important as how, what am I learning when I'm there?
Yeah,
And so you
absolutely.
understand that a meaningful program, and especially what's so great about esports, is you get the ability to flex all that you're learning in your major, right, as a business major, through esports.
Yeah.
And so the other side of Garden State Esports and the esports movement, at least in K-12, and the colleges are catching on to, is, okay, we're going to use games to make kids just better people, right? We're going to combat toxicity, misogyny, homophobia, right, racism, because we're going to teach these kids just like we do everything else, right? We're going to teach them while they're in school. But then also it becomes a careers program, because
Yeah.
now we added streaming. And now when we have streamers, we need casters. Because we have casters, we need, people to mod the Twitch. Because we mod the Twitch, we need overlays. We need to promote the stream. And now all of a sudden, right, in Jersey, the average team size of a GSE team is 33. Half of those kids don't want to compete. They just want to be part of something.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the whole vision that I think is because of what's happening in K-12 is getting pushed up to colleges. Are, students like you are getting to Emerson, and you're saying, like, I want to marry my passion for gaming and streaming, right, with a potential lucrative career.
Yeah.
And people forget just how lucrative, the video game industry is. I always, when I do these meetings with parents and stuff, we always talk about STEM, 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 STEM. Something like 70% of STEM jobs are going to be in and around the gaming industry.
Yeah.
So how can we use esports and gaming to get kids to be more excited to learn, to want to come to school, to stay after school and stay out of trouble? Kids learn when they have a better sense of belonging, and then to give them real hands-on experiences that they can put into their portfolio. Look at the esports social media that I managed. Look at the team that I ran. Look at the biz dev plan I developed for my
Yeah.
esports team. That's what it's all about. So like anything else, it's just a vehicle for learning, and it's cool to see, the colleges catching on and stuff like that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those sorts of experiences, I've even been able to like utilize what I've learned and done with, like Emerson Esports, like far more than I ever thought that I would be able to. Like I truly didn't understand like how much I was learning until I switched my major from musical theater to the business of creative enterprises. And all of a sudden I was like applying things that I had learned as the president of the org to, what I was doing in class. And I honestly thought it was going to be the opposite at first. I was like, I'm going to be able to apply everything I'm learning in class to, the org, which granted, I was able to at some point, but like I didn't even realize how much I was learning at the time just being involved, in the org and taking on a position that I've, had never taken on before. But I think those crossroads is so important, and I think that's why it's great, everything that you're doing, especially for these students. And I think that there's this social aspect that you talked about, because I think a lot of people at one point thought that kids and students are like antisocial if they play video games. So like that is absolutely like the opposite. If anything, like, I hate the end of the year because students are always saying how sad they are to like be leaving school and leaving the org and things like that. But at the same time, they're talking about how how they've built connections with other students that they never thought that they would be able to because of esports and programs that are built. So I think it's, phenomenal that that's something that you've realized and been able to implement for students and programs and schools. And that makes me sort of want to ask you a little bit about the importance of accessibility and inclusion. I know that there's a program within Garden State Esports that is called the Unified Program. And so I wanted to ask like a little bit about, if you could speak a little bit about that program and
Yeah.
then, what accessibility and inclusion means in the
Yeah, I
space.
mean, so it goes back to I'm very lucky that I get to do a lot of wonderful podcasts like this, and I get to do a lot of speaking nationally and internationally about the power of esports. And uh, I'm always been a doer, right? I want to do something,
Hmm.
and I got so tired of going to all of these DEI. How do we get more inclusivity in esports? And everybody sits there and say, "Yeah, we need to get more people in esports." But nobody ever did anything. Nobody
Hmm.
ever launched anything or tried a program. Everybody, just kind of was out there saying like, yeah, let's get more women in STEM and let's get, more students involved, in whatever label they wanted to throw at them. But the reality was, is they're I couldn't find any programs where it said like, here's what we did and here's what happened. And so within GSE, everybody being a teacher and wanting to serve all the kids, and inclusion means giving them a meaningful, way to participate and be who they are. We created some of these verticals, and we're very careful about the verticals, right? We say they're in addition to. So we have our, we'll call it our varsity level program where you can compete, right? Your best team for a state championship, right? That's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit of an esports league. Give me your best team, compete against you win. Cool. Like we all know that.
Yeah.
But how do we get marginalized genders, students with learning disabilities, physical disabilities? We know they're all gaming. We know they're all here, right? And whether they don't think the space is safe for them, or they don't feel that they can compete or be involved, or they have to modify, the competition to fit their needs. Well, we do that all the time as teachers in the classroom. We modify our lessons, we make accommodations. So what does that look like in the world of esports? So we create a unified league, which is a league in addition to our competitive league. And this league, like all of our verticals, are stepstones and gateways to getting more kids involved. So with Unified specifically, it's for students with physical or learning disabilities, right? Neurodiverse students. or students who otherwise have a difficult time competing, with neurotypical, other players. And we leave it up to their teacher, their coach, to determine who fits what bill. Even within Unified, there's multiple levels where we have, asynchronous Mario Kart time trials, because Mario Kart is a great title, because you can put the car on auto drive, and the kid can kind of just hold the controller, but they still feel like they're being involved.
Yeah.
Or we have a unified competitive program where unified students compete against each other, but they can also compete in the varsity league, because 12% of our league self-identified, right, as having an autism spectrum diagnosis, physical or learning disability, but they're still able to compete at a varsity level, right? So they can compete as both. We allow their neurotypical peers to compete with them in their league, so that way there's a whole social element. We do this thing called Friends List, where we get everybody together, and it's really just about adding each other on the friends list, so that way kids aren't gaming with strangers, they're gaming with other people. And what we ultimately see, though, is they will enter the program in one level, and that's often because a teacher views a kid a certain way. And then by giving the kid the opportunity to play, they quickly realize that they're capable of more than they thought. So then they could stay after school and compete, or they can actually, because some of our players, they need aids or transportation to be able to stay after school, and that's not always something the school's willing to pay for. We actually allow them to compete during the day in school. So they can compete asynchronously during the day in school, they can compete after school, and then if they want to and are ready, they can make the jump over to the proper competitive team. And so we see this conveyor belt of kids who are getting involved and realize that they're capable, or their teachers or their parents realize that they're capable of more than they thought. And next thing you know, they're making their way from the unified program into the competitive program, or they're serving some role as a mentor or helper. And it's really something cool, because a lot of times, and I see this especially, I think, in kids who love esports, right? Kids who love gaming. Maybe they're not into traditional sports, but sometimes their true skills don't match their confidence level. And by just giving them the ability, to get in and try and compete and get better and have regular interactions, next thing you know, like anybody else, they just improve.
Yeah.
So we have a unified league. We actually have something called Valkyrie League, which is our all girls and marginalized genders league, right? Because we know that girls game just as much as boys, but they often don't feel safe in the space. And through, again, just bringing esports into schools, that's where we could start to do some of that work, and make the space more reflective of the population here, in Jersey and beyond. But we have literally found like the two gateway folks that get girls into proper competitive esports team. And number one, it's their brothers, right? If they have a brother on the team, see,
My
if they
brother
have a
plays, yeah. So,
because if you're like the girls that I have both coached and I have in the league, a brother is a safe person who will protect you. And so even my very first esports program, I had no girls on my team to start. My second year, I had one girl come out because her two older brothers were there. The third year, she brought four girls with her. And that's what it looks like. And then the
yeah.
other side is we have some girls here in Jersey that are good. We have a Radiant, top 500 Valorant player. She
Yeah.
plays on the varsity team. She's unbelievable. She's so passionate. She went out and got the other four girls that she knows who plays Valorant in her school and said, we're making a Valkyrie team.
Yeah.
So they played in that league. And then the top, two or three players on that Valkyrie team realized that they were probably better than the boys on the varsity team, and they made the jump to the varsity team, and now they start, and so that's what we're seeing. And so for us, especially with Valkyrie, I remember I reached out to pro level female players, pro level male players, girls in our league who never played a game, girls who have played with GSE, and I could never get a clear answer about if an all girls league was a good idea. But we just said, forget it, we're going to do it, and we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. And when we started, 4% of the league was female or identified as female, and it's now almost 22%. So
Yeah.
within 18 months, we've, I don't do math, quintupled, the number of women and marginalized genders that play with us.
Yeah.
And so it's part of understanding that inclusion is not an accident. You have to actively go out and you have to get these people, and you have to tell them, like, we're not the best we can be if you're not in that room. And
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid. We're going to, help you. As club advisors, as coaches, we have to model. We have to have zero tolerance for any type of hate or toxicity, even joking. And when you create those conditions, right? Students with special needs, your female players, your kids of color, especially if you offer the correct games. Everybody wants to game. Everybody wants to come out and play. You just have to create the correct conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love what you said about a couple things. The two keywords that I wanted to bring it back up were the idea of opportunity and the idea of building confidence. And I think allowing students the opportunity to try new things, whether that's, continuing to play a game that they've always played or branching out into something new to learn what they are, maybe better at than they thought they were, or give them the chance to try and maybe fail a bit or try and succeed, because that's what it's all about. And it's having those safe
Absolutely.
spaces to be able to do that I think is so important. And then the idea of like building that confidence, whether it's, students from the unified program or students who are part of one of the Valkyrie teams, like being able to then make the jump to varsity, I think is so important, because when we talk about making those spaces and having a space where everyone can feel included, like, you know, the hope is that students will feel and build confidence to be able to then play in the varsity programs, because
Absolutely.
I think that's an ongoing debate. I think especially around something like having like a specific team for marginalized genders, because a lot of people, will bring up the fact that like it shouldn't be that way and that everyone should sort of play together. Well, yes, I believe that is true. There's also the idea that like there is a lack of confidence there because of the way that people have been treated by playing video games. So I think having that opportunity and allowing students to then jump to the varsity program once they, once they find their footing, with that team, I think is really important. And I think that that's kind of how we have to start in order to get to the
Yeah.
next
Well, and I'll tell you, Friday too
level.
is that confidence. When I say varsity program too, I mentioned before that we have a lot of students that fill alternate roles behind competition. And similar to yourself being the president and stuff like that, we actually see a lot of girls who maybe are very happy with the level of competition at Valkyrie, or can't make the varsity team. But where we see a ton of girls come is into leadership roles
Yeah.
over their overall esports program. So we actually at GSE, our kids, and I say our kids, the kids in the league, they
Hmm.
run all of our production. They do all of our streaming for our weekly matchups. When we do our state finals, the entire team is a product.
It's
Almost
awesome.
all of my behind the scenes and about half of my on camera are all women.
That's awesome.
And so
Yeah.
a lot of that, and I'm sure you have stories too, is you're a leader at your school in a male dominated space, and that can't be easy, and it had to
Hmm.
be intimidating, I would imagine, to get started. um, but that confidence doesn't always translate to better competition, right? It does,
Hmm.
however, translate into a more willingness to try
Yeah.
things that you're passionate about. And so we're very proud. Our YouTube channel, as the kids say, is fire. I spend a lot of time and energy and money making sure that our
Love
YouTube
it.
channel
Yeah.
really captures what we're doing, because this is so foreign to so many people. A good YouTube video really goes a long way because it makes it all make
It's
sense.
true.
And so we feature all of the girls across GSE who are doing production for their schools and stuff like that. But then the other cool piece too is we have almost 600 coaches in the league.
Wow.
Education is still a female dominated profession. So a little bit more than half of our coaches are women. And so now to have these young men being coached by strong female role models who do not tolerate any nonsense, that's also helping. And
Yeah.
so we even have to have courses and opportunities for our adult women
Mm.
to learn about leadership, and how to handle coaching the boys, because I'll hear from our female coaches all the time that they're constantly challenged. Oh,
Mm.
you're coaching the esports team, what do you know about games? And sometimes the coach doesn't know about the game, but that doesn't mean that they're not a good coach. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I didn't play in the NFL, but I was always a pretty good football coach, because I understood the game, and I got the professional development and training to be even better.
Yeah.
And so we also have to provide that too for the adults who are interacting with the kids throughout the league. And as much as I love college esports, even some of these college esports directors need to get some training on working with people and what they do on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally hear you on that. And I mean, I think to the point about coaches and esports directors, I think there's a
Mhm.
level, uh, you know, a good portion of it can be about, whatever said titles you're playing or like that you're involved with. But like a lot of it at the end of the day is like there are skills that coaches have that other people who just enjoy the games and know about the games don't have, because
Right.
there is that difference. You know what I'm saying? A coach isn't just a player. There's people
So
management and there's
that's what I say. Can you manage people? Then you can be a great coach. I can teach you everything else.
exactly. And I think that's a lot of things, that have to be thought about or should be thought about a bit more these days when schools are putting programs into play, and they're recruiting coaches or directors.
Right.
I think that's a huge thing that they have to remember, is that like at the end of the day, it is going to be about the students and how you work with the students, and so they're going to need that support from someone who doesn't just like the games, like actually has
Right.
knowledge of how to help them.
Yeah,
uh
how to help the game, and I think too is there at the college level there needs to be a bit more investment in the community and
oh
understanding that and this was the pitch that I gave to the Jersey colleges. I said, look, in Jersey we have two schools that won national championships. Nobody's ever heard of them.
yeah,
Even kids within my league don't know who's won a national championship at the college level,
yeah,
right? So you can try and you can go out and you can be as competitive as humanly possible and you can cater to the 1%. But to me, and you got to think too, is from the scholastic level, what we care about is, if I send Friday to Emerson, is she going to get the job that she wants when she leaves? Is
mm,
the program going to have made her a better person when she leaves? And so for us as the teachers, when we look at the college space, when we look at the Twitter, we look at the competitive teams and stuff like that. If we have 12,000 kids in the league, you know, I think we've gotten 3 or 4 kids in Jersey full rides,
yeah,
and some of them have even gone on to play pro. Well, that leaves, 11,950 kids that I want to find a home for in college.
yeah,
And so I think too is we need to understand that esports at the highest competitive level is great, but most people can't name a starter on the Team Liquid Rocket League team.
yeah,
Most people can't name, and so we need to consider what is it that we're doing with esports. I sit on the Riot Scholastic board, and we have created a pathway where, like other sports generally, it kind of looks like, hey, we want this to go from high school to college to pro, right?
hmm
Because that's probably going to be better long term for everybody. So, how do we make sure, just like in traditional sports, when we send a kid to the college level, he has a great experience. He, has a great athletic, opportunity to play at, the post college level. But if not, they got a degree and they got a pathway to a job,
yeah,
right? That's what's really going to make esports sustainable. I think is making it part of a student's pathway to success. If we can get them to a pro level, if we can get them to a college that's great. But if not, like,
yeah.
what's the backup plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, part of the reason that I really like the conversations that are happening now about making college as a stepping stone, into the industry, whether that's from a pro player perspective or from more of like a business job standpoint. I mean, not that being a pro technically isn't a job, but like, I'm saying, like, yes, that you make
Yes,
money
I get
doing
you.
that, but like I
Right.
think that's, I've always supported players wanting to go to college, and then, you know, if they find themselves into pro, they do, and if not, they have something that they've been able to build from themselves from college. And that's why I feel like whenever I mention esports to my teachers and stuff, they're like, or streaming or content creation, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, like, are you gonna be like the classic streamer and like drop out and go pursue whatever? And I'm like, no, 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 I'm actually gonna stay here because I really want to get my education. I was like, because I think, with whatever happens, I will have my degree and skills that I've learned here that can hopefully kickstart me, if I do choose to career change or, make some sort of switch like that. And that's always why that's been important. And so I think setting up players and students to have that sort of backup with the college education, I think, is really important. So I think it's great that
Yeah.
that's
And I
available.
think too is the wider net that we cast with the way that we frame esports and esports programs. Think about the alumni network that's going to be built.
Yeah,
right? Whatever you go on to do and you go on to be very successful, you're never going to forget the role that esports played in your life and the experience you had at Emerson. So
exactly.
anytime you have the opportunity to give back, you're going to give back.
Yeah.
It was funny, last year I went to get my license for the Blizzard titles that we play, and their new esports competitive license person, I forget what the actual title is a former GSE student.
That's
We've
awesome.
been around for 6 years, and so we now have kids who have basically graduated and are working in the industry.
Yeah.
And it always is impressive to me when I hear from or run into, a kid or a kid who knows a kid or a parent who had a kid who plays with us, because you realize the impact that you're making. And so if we support these communities and we grow our communities and we have these opportunities, even on your own campus, to engage kids who want to game and to bring people together, gamers are some of the most passionate people on the planet. And so when we think about, 5, 10 years from now, how this becomes sustainable, the alumni network is going to be built more around the people that we have impacted and the people that we've set up for success than who have gone on to go pro for a couple years.
Hmm.
So that to me, I think is really important too, is we even see it. One of the beautiful things, again, about the college league and why we did it is so many of our kids are staying in New Jersey to go to college. When they get there, number one, they wanted something to do with esports and wanted to stay engaged with what they were doing with GSE. But
Yeah.
number two, they were all looking to like give back to their high schools. So we have a lot of kids who like still coach at their high schools, or they do visits, or the college team scrims the high school teams and stuff.
Yeah.
So we're building this big family in Jersey that I want to see replicated across the greater space, because
Yeah.
as much as I love traditional sports, and I wrestled my whole life and that's my favorite sport, as much as I learned about life
Yeah.
from the world of wrestling, there are kids who find gaming to be that same level of a life ed teacher and tool for them to express themselves. And then again, you add all the opportunities into it. We need to cast a wider net and support a wider net. And then I also think that's how the investments from the colleges around recruiting and stuff like that, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like I can understand that passion when something like that changes your life. And so, you said wrestling had a big, impact on who you are. And I, can absolutely say that I can feel that way about gaming, and I get like emotional
Yeah.
about it because it just, really shaped so much of who I am. And I think there's no feeling like wanting to give that to other people.
Right.
And I think, that's why a lot of us do what we do in this space.
Right. Well, and that's why I love Cope too, is, I met Chris and got to know Chris because I had 3 kids that were going to go pro and they were trying out for different teams, and their parents were reaching out to me, kind of saying, hey, like, we have no idea what to do. Can you help us? Can you give us advice? And I said, look, my knowledge kind of stops at the college level, because as being a traditional coach, I understood, NCAA, clearinghouse,
Hmm.
recruitment. I understood it at that level.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West in esports. We had colleges that were adding 12-year-olds to a college Discord and telling them that they were going to play. And, you know, so to be able to rely on Cope to give that advice, based on what they had gone through, with their own kids, Skeptic and those guys, has always been impressive. And so I think about, people like you, Friday, is you come home from school or you come home from Emerson, you're all excited about this esports and gaming thing, and the parents, maybe just don't understand.
Yeah.
And I hear all the time from parents in our league, I have no idea what you're doing. I just know that you're excited to go to school and you're excited when you come home from school. So we want to support this.
Yeah.
We just need to know how. And so Cope is filling that role, because behind every excited kid, right, there's sometimes some parents that need to better understand that this isn't necessarily a waste of time, right? There's ways to balance work, life, and gaming like everything else.
Yeah.
But also, just the grand scheme of what is happening, right? It's when I do parent workshops, I kind of get them to understand, like, you know, as a teacher, I could point to the time where I think gaming crossed over to mainstream, and that was the day after Ninja, Juju Smith Schuster, Drake all
Yeah.
played Fortnite together.
Hmm.
Because every kid from every walk of life came in the next day, all having had watched that stream.
Yeah.
And they're like, you play Fortnite? You play Fortnite? Oh, right. So Fortnite, in a
Yeah.
way, was like, I saw it live.
Yeah.
and that was a big moment, I think, for kids, but I think for parents, it was the pandemic when they
Mm,
realized that their kids were staying connected, they were talking to friends. And, I've talked to parents about, the relationships that kids form online with people that they game with, even if they've never met, are just as real to them as any other relationship, and it could be
yeah.
meaningful. So I think that's part of the equation too, is we need to better educate the space, because it wasn't too long ago that, it was acceptable to shit talk gamers.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I'm
yeah.
Jersey. I don't know if we're allowed to curse on the podcast. Sorry, Chris. You can edit it out. But the reality is, like, when you had the varsity jacket, like, I'm the captain of the football team, I'm the cheerleading captain, I'm the yay, like, we love you. I like video games. Well, that's a waste of time. Good luck being an
Yeah.
unemployed, antisocial loser. Like, that's part of a kid's identity, even
Yeah.
now more than ever. So
Yeah.
how are you going to do that to a kid and say, like, oh, that thing you love is a complete waste of time,
Yeah.
when we know it's not? We know
Yeah.
there's jobs in the space, there's friendships in the space, there's opportunities in the space. So to me, the work that you and this podcast and you guys are doing at Cope, programs like Emerson, even before Chris introduced us, I had heard about you and the work you're doing in Emerson. Emerson, I actually sent a couple kids to Emerson.
Did you
Um,
really?
yeah, I got a couple kids that go to Emerson.
That's awesome.
So, it's this idea that the space is only going to get better as long as there's organizations like Cope and folks like you in it lifting other people up. So I think that's the big message, right, to get out there
Yeah.
is we'll get there.
Yeah. That means so much to hear. Thank you. Like I can tell you from all of us, like that means so, so much. And I mean, I can absolutely say the same thing, with you and everything that you're doing with Garden State Esports, I think is like monumental to me, just like hearing about it and learning more about what you're doing and seeing the impact that you're making on, these students K through 12. And I think, even, going on into the professional scene and, seeing them, pursue certain things in just a short amount of time, I think is incredible. And we had talked a little bit about scholastic, obviously, and college.
Mhm.
And I want to ask a little bit about Gameplan and what some of the curriculum offerings are there, and sort of
Yeah.
how you sort of shaped what is offered through Gameplan, and where those sort
Yeah.
of ideas came from.
Um, Yeah, so Gameplan, the work that they're so it's a Swedish-based company, and they have been doing very well in Sweden. They wanted to come to the United States, and now, with the help of a great team here in the U.S., we're doing very well here, because realistically, it is teaching what kids what we want them to know through something that they love. And so, both the curriculum that I have worked on and they have created is really just exploring careers and opportunities in and around gaming. It's also a lot around integration. So,
Mm,
by trade, I'm an English teacher, but I've had a high school esports elective for the last 7 or 8 years. And my kids used to want to fist fight me when it was time to do public speaking unit, right?
mm,
They hated it. So what I did was I said, okay, instead of giving speeches, you're going to start your own Twitch stream, because you're going to stream and you're going to talk and you're going to get all your public speaking standards and everything that we have to do, but we're going to do it through streaming.
yeah.
Our nonfiction writing became video game reviews, right? They would start websites like IGN and review their favorite games and stuff like that. Allowing them, I would tell them two things in my class you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to make slide presentations, and you're not allowed to write essays. I don't want to watch them and I don't want to read them.
Mm-hmm.
I said, figure out another way to show me what you have learned. So they were building websites. I had kids building things in Minecraft and then explaining it to the class. And so it's capturing a lot of like this game-based learning and opportunity to teach traditional educational topics through engaging and interesting and exciting ways.
That's awesome.
So we have a lot of the ability for teachers to grab different things like that. So if you want to teach chemistry through Minecraft, if you want to teach, I'm going to get it wrong, but like how in science you do like the families and the species and
Yeah.
let's do it with Pokemon, or let's do it with Super Smash Bros. You
Yeah.
got your melee fighters and your shield guys and your long
Mm-hmm.
distance dudes and your zoners. Like, let's classify all of them. It's the same education, right? It's just more engaging.
Yeah.
Like every eighth grade science class has to do inclined planes and screws and stuff like that. So how about we learn how to build a Rube Goldberg machine in Unreal Engine? Oh, and by the way, Unreal Engine powers Fortnite. Oh, and by the way, Unreal Engine also now makes Disney movies, Star Wars movies, and Marvel movies,
Yeah.
and is, it's so cutting edge that it's barely taught in colleges. How about you start using that program?
Yeah.
And then we have proper full courses. So if you want a high school elective, a middle school elective, cybersecurity elective, we have partnerships where we're learning partner with Epic Games and stuff like that. So it's really just like opportunities to integrate game-based learning or launch new and engaging electives. And really the biggest, I guess, thing that we're seeing that's really sparking a lot of excitement is when you launch programs like this, kids are more likely to come to school, right? We have
Yeah, I was
in a
about to
10
say that.
right, yeah. So what we're seeing is like data's telling us like in a 10-day window, kids who have programs like esports electives and after school esports programs, they're coming to school 2 more days than their peers. And what's
Yeah.
cool too, right? What a lot of non-teachers don't know is the funding formulas for school often involve average daily attendance, like how many kids showed up that day to school. And so
Interesting.
we have entire school districts recapturing millions of dollars of funding
Wow.
because these kids are now coming to school more. So the program, the esports program, they're actually paying for themselves, right? They're capturing hundreds of thousands, in some cases, millions of dollars, just because they're offering high interest, high engagement courses to kids. And it's really careers in STEM and just using games to teach stuff they have to learn anyway. So Gameplan, I used to run a blog called Teched Up Teacher for a long time that was all about game-based learning and integrating stuff and using video games and, reading a book, watching a movie, having a video game and comparing it all as a piece of art. Um,
Wow.
and now, to know that Gameplan is a company, doing the same stuff I was, it was a no-brainer for me to join the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think it's amazing. And I am very blessed to have, really enjoyed going to school throughout my entire life. But I
Right.
think that idea of engaging students with programs like this and game-based learning, like I was jazzed to go to class like more days when we would be
Yeah.
doing something like a tad bit more exciting than a lecture. Like I'd be like, "Oh my
Right.
god, we have like a group project we're working on." Like even something simple as that got me more excited. So I think that engagement aspect of it and like making it something that, students who, maybe didn't, weren't typically as, engaged or involved, like really
Yeah.
hitting that for them as frequently as you can, I think is so
Well,
huge.
see, how about gym class though? Were you a gym class fan?
I wasn't I mean, I still went because I like
Right.
had to and that's but like not at I would dread it. Like absolutely would dread it. I would not
See, and I
want to
asked
go.
because the next big project we're working on is a gamer gym class. Because
Oh,
we know for probably 25% of the kids, gym class isn't cutting it. They don't want to change. They don't want to play dodgeball. Um, but like I said earlier in the show, is we know that to be successful in sports, to be successful in career, to be successful academically, like it takes building good habits,
mhm.
right? And so we're taking those good habits of, taking the game, turning it off, performance training, exercise, mental health, physical health, diet, exercise, sleep, and we're just kind of reframing it around like gaming. And
Yeah.
so, that's one of the next big things that we want to jump into is what does a gym and health class look like? And so we've got some college professors at Georgian Court that we've been working, for the last year, kind of getting this curriculum together because there's just so many opportunities to take something as fun and exciting as gaming and just use it to make sure everybody has a great middle school, high school experience. Everybody should look up, forward to school. Everybody should have a class and a teacher that they can't wait to see.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that we fix this education system is, we haven't really changed since like the 1860s when the factories came out. Like we got to kind of update this and we got to kind of be open to, meeting kids where they are. So,
Yeah.
I think I think it's a valuable teaching tool, learning tool, socially, emotionally, academically, competitively. Let's lean into it. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about meeting kids where they are. I think that couldn't be more true and more important. And so, I think it's incredible what you're doing, and I can't wait to hear about this, new gym aspect that you're going to add in, because I think that obviously what, like, I can say already right now that that would have made everything, like, all of the difference for me, and a course such as gym,
Right.
and what's involved with that. And then I wanted to talk about really quickly the idea of like personalized avatars. Like, I know that's a feature that Game Plan has, and
Mhm.
like, you know not, and it's not on like a reward based system, almost,
Mhm.
is like not prioritizing, how much of something you get right, but how much is something that you're like actively trying
Yeah,
to learn.
it's not pay to win. So
Yeah.
if you get an A, you don't get more little avatar things. But it's like anything else. Like if you can add little gamification elements that again get kids more excited to do what they have sometimes traditionally not been excited to do, why not? So we have our little avatar buddy, and at different increments, you earn some flair, you earn some skins, as the kids say, and
Yeah.
you get to kind of make a little buddy that represents who you are. And it's cool because you can see all the different ways that kids want to express themselves and all the different options, whether it's gender neutral or gendered or whatever they want to do. It's kind of neat too, and it goes back to, at least in my mind, um, a bigger picture of the metaverse and what it looks like to have this online persona, compared to IRL persona.
Yeah.
So that we added, and it was just kind of this neat little fun way for kids to express themselves. And a lot of times they're excited just to go in and see what new stuff we've added on Game Plan for them to dress up. And hey, look, the battle pass and the skins work, man.
Yeah.
It's engagement, and so yeah, it's what we're
Absolutely.
trying.
I love it, and I think it's great that it's not based on like how good of a grade you get or something, like it's not
Right.
that pay to win aspect, because I think that just
No.
like that almost adds more stress and like more
Yeah.
worry to something that you're trying to make it, like fun. Like, you want people to come back to, the whatever plan that they're working on, and want to actually continue to learn, instead of being like, I'm afraid I'm not going to remember all of this for the test, and then I'm not going to get
Yeah.
the new crown feature for my avatar. You know what I'm saying? Like that,
Yeah.
I think, can make all the
Getting
difference.
getting good grades is the reward in and of itself. So to reward the reward doesn't make sense. So let's give kids the opportunity, and this goes greater, beyond the avatar system, is let's just give kids ways to find, explore, and ultimately celebrate the things that they find that they're good at and passionate about. Because realistically, most of the stuff that we teach them, they're going to forget, but they're not going to forget the kind of people we help them to be and how we treat them. And ultimately, wherever they go, I've been lucky to work with companies like Google and Microsoft. And when you get to these companies, they're going to train you to work the way they want you to work anyway. Right.
Hmm.
But let's make sure these kids are coachable, they're adaptable, they know
Yeah.
how to overcome adversity, they got the personal, skills, the executive skills to be successful. And a lot of time that's found through exploring different passions and exploring different things to do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's, 100% on the money. And that's why I think it's great that you've, implemented that into Game Plan.
Mhm.
And so the last thing, the last little segment I have for you is the hot seat segment.
Okay.
And so, okay, so based on what we previously talked about, this first question, I might already know the answer, but I'm not going to make assumptions. Whether or
Okay.
not you believe that pineapple belongs on pizza.
No.
Okay, that's the answer that I saw coming based on the conversation we had earlier.
No.
That
Okay. Listen, for Jersey, we got the best pizza in the country. Do not put pineapple on my pizza.
Is there a pineapple, or is there a pizza that you like the most from Jersey? Is it just like plain, or do you like?
Listen, yeah, if you got a good plain slice, there's nothing better than a good plain slice.
Okay, love
I'm
it.
going down to Ocean City later tonight. I'm gonna go to
Oh,
Manco's on the
awesome.
boardwalk. Get me a nice plain slice.
I love it.
Don't mess with my plain slices.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm from Philly, so I've gone down to Ocean
Oh,
City in New Jersey
there
plenty.
you
So
go.
I hear
So
you. Yeah.
Manco's is slamming.
I hear you. Okay, so the next question. You're deserted on an island and you can only bring three things. What do you bring? It can be anything, like truly.
Uh, let's see. I remember this thought experiment because I used to do it in class. I know the only thing I need is going to be a Celine Dion CD, because when the plane flies overhead, I'm going to look through the CD and I'm going to flash it at the plane and signal, right, for me to
That's
come rescue.
great.
Outside of that, maybe a satellite phone and some water. But
Heard.
yeah, I'm just gonna bring my Celine Dion CD so I can signal the search planes.
Is there any reason Celine Dion specifically?
I just remember, I always used to do like these fun thought experiments to warm kids up, especially
Yeah.
when we were doing creative writing. And just by saying it was a Celine Dion CD made them discount how valuable it could be. And then we
Yeah.
would have discussions around like, look, don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
It's a Celine Dion CD, but like if you need a way to get rescued, you look through the circle in the middle of the CD and you flash it at a plane, like that's
I
going
think
to be
it's
your number
great.
one way to get off the island.
I think it's
So,
great. No, that
yeah.
was a phenomenal answer. Now I now I know what I'm gonna bring. And then okay, so this next one, if you could turn any game into an esport, what would it be and
Oh,
why?
listen, and this even goes back to a book.
Ooh.
There has been such a lack of content and media created around the most dangerous game. Like, I
Oh,
need the most dangerous game TV series, movie, esport. I mean, what's better than hunting other humans? They are the most dangerous game,
I hear you. No, that's great. I mean,
right?
I also like that you were thinking about like having like movies and TV shows and series and stuff like that.
And
Like
I
you
just,
talk.
again, I used to teach the most dangerous game, and it wasn't even because I had to, it was just awesome.
Yeah,
And every time I'd be like, all right, go make a TV show about the most dangerous game. And come up with a game or something. And these kids would make these awesome games about hunting humans.
that's
And I
awesome.
just thought it was fantastic.
No, that's perfect. I love it. And then do you have a favorite video game and a favorite esport? They can be the same thing, they can be different
Mm.
things.
So I always generally have an RPG going, and then my esport kind of changes with my cycle of life.
Heard.
Started with StarCraft because I used to have 45 minutes of uninterrupted time. Then I went to college and went to CS:GO and Overwatch.
Yeah.
Then I got married, and then that changed. Then I had kids, and now my favorite esport title is Marvel Snap because I can play on
Ooh.
my phone while I hold my kid. That
There
kind
you
of
go.
stuff. So
Yeah.
when he falls asleep on me, I can play some Snap while my arm goes numb. Um,
There you go.
Game is RPG subjective. I mean, Fallout is my favorite IP.
Okay, yeah.
Anything Fallout related, anything post-apocalyptic. I even looked at Once Human just because it fits that survival
Mhm.
crafting thing that I enjoy. Seven
Yeah.
Days to Die, that kind. Anything with zombies and end of the world is right up my alley. So
Love
Fallout,
it.
definitely my favorite IP. I just hope they fix whatever they did about 76 and just make a Fallout 5 already and stop the game.
Yeah.
Stop messing around.
No, I hear you. That's great. Thank you for answering my hot seat questions.
Yeah, no
And
worries.
thank you so much for being here, Chris. This was an
Yeah.
incredible conversation that I feel was so informative and is going to help so many people, I think, just understand esports from a scholastic perspective, and just gaming and what the industry has to offer, in general and what you're providing. Where can people find you on socials? And you can plug any social media you want
Yeah.
to here.
Check me out. My handle on all platforms is Teched Up Teacher, TECHED Up Teacher. That's me on all platforms. Garden State Esports, GSEsports.org on all platforms and the website. And then over at Gameplan, gameplan.com, and Gameplan EDU on most social platforms. So you can get to me all kinds of different ways, but always happy to discuss esports, give advice, help out. You know, I've had the I've been blessed to build probably 1,000 esports programs across really the world at this point.
Incredible.
Um, so from middle school, high school, college, I'm always happy to talk esports with anybody.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you heard it here, folks. All Chris's social media, as well as Garden State Esports and Game Plan social media, will be linked below, as well as the Cope social media. So make sure to subscribe and follow us here at CopeGG on YouTube because we have more podcast episodes coming, as well as over on our Twitter at CopeGG to keep up with all of our latest news and updates. I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.